By now, everyone knows about the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, a viral sensation that swept the country last summer, raising money and awareness for a disease that until then was fairly unknown. For the first time, ALS no longer has to be identified as Lou Gehrig's disease, and even people who have never been touched by it can describe what happens to patients diagnosed with this fatal illness. The tidal wave of understanding and support is especially gratifying to people at the Les Turner ALS Foundation, who have been working toward the same goal for decades. Chief among them is Wendy Abrams, who first heard about Les Turner and his plight with ALS when she volunteered at the Mammoth Music Mart in 1977, and soon after was offered the job of Executive Director by founder and president Harvey Gaffin.
Wendy was really my first thought as a person who maybe could step into the role. It's just a feeling you get for someone's capabilities and commitment, and Wendy always had that.
Initially, the job was strictly to raise money for research, with much of the work centered on the Music Mart. And by 1979, they had enough to partner with Northwestern Medicine and open the first research laboratory in the country dedicated to ALS. But as the Music Mart grew, so did the number of people asking about the disease, which inspired Wendy to see if there was more the foundation could do.
We put together focus groups, calling in ALS family members and patients, trying to find out what is it that the ALS population really wanted from an organization that we weren't providing. And I think I was disappointing patients because I couldn't give them what they wanted. And so I quickly learned that I needed to step back and bring in some healthcare professionals to really address the needs.
That was the start of another first of its kind for ALS, a clinic where patients and their families could receive specialized care. Funded in part by a patient's family, the Lois Insolia ALS Clinic was small at first, but as more people came in, it grew to meet their needs. As always, Wendy was at the forefront, looking for ways to improve patients' quality of life as their disease progressed. But when it came to the loss of speech, the best she could offer was a very basic device. Then she met Steve Wells.
I had a friend diagnosed with ALS, and so we developed a communication device for him so that when he lost his ability to speak, he was able to use this computer device to compose text and to write. And Wendy found out about this, and she said, "Do you have any idea how many people could benefit from this?" And I said, "Well, no, I had no idea. I just did this for my buddy." And within a year of that, Wendy had pulled together the first ever communication loaner bank for people with ALS.
The first patient they brought it to was Joanne Retzinger, who had been with the foundation throughout the progression of her disease.
I got her fashioned with an eyebrow switch. It's a cotton headband with a little sensor that sits here, and I showed her how that operates. And she was able to actually speak to her family, and people were crying, and it was amazing. And Wendy was super excited because she saw the problem, she found an answer to it, and she made it happen. That's what Wendy does.
That's true for research as well. In 1991, she played a major role in recruiting one of the top ALS researchers in the country, Dr. Tipu Siddique, who shortly after coming to Northwestern, made the first discovery of a genetic cause for a particular form of ALS.
We were all very excited. This was huge, not only for him and Northwestern, but for Les Turner. We were getting international attention brought to us because of his work, and that was phenomenal.
Each time we came up with a new discovery that changed the field, it energized the foundation and energized Wendy, and she went that extra mile, which most people don't go, to create a new program or new equipment.
One of her most exciting projects is the newly established Les Turner ALS Research and Patient Center at Northwestern Medicine, which offers new hope for the future of ALS care, research, training, and outreach. In addition to Dr. Siddique's laboratory, the center includes 2 other research teams. One led by Dr. Hande Ozdinler, an expert in upper motor neuron biology who Wendy had a hand in recruiting back in 2008, and a new one headed by Dr. Evangelos Kiskinis, whose work is based on stem cell biology.
Wendy's constantly pushing for the latest and greatest state-of-the-art. What can we do better? What's the fastest way to find a cure? We're not just going to have the most outstanding research person on the planet. We're going to have several teams of the most phenomenal research folks on the planet.
I'm the luckiest woman on earth because I was given an incredible amount of support from the Les Turner Foundation, which allowed me to initiate one of the leading labs for the upper motor neuron biology. And this was the field that was untouched. And we now initiated a big research group, and we made discoveries. And it was, I think, thanks to Wendy, because her inspiration was so vivid.
As a researcher, it feels special to be part of that community. Each laboratory has its own unique expertise, and I think each one of us can help the other in solving some of the problems that are common to ALS research.
In addition to research, the center also focuses on patient care. bringing both of Wendy's passions together under one umbrella by uniting the laboratories with the Lois Insolia ALS Clinic, which has grown over the years to become a model for ALS organizations throughout the world, with its multidisciplinary approach to patient care.
Not only have we expanded the number of clinics that we have, we've expanded the number of patients that we see, we've expanded the number and types of healthcare providers that we've brought in, and Wendy's been a partner in that the whole way.
10 years ago, respiratory care and respiratory support in ALS was a new thing, and we had a lot of new tools that we could use, but getting it done was the hard part. And Wendy said, I can fix this. And she went to the university and she made it happen. And she could make things happen that the heads of 2 divisions couldn't make happen, that the dean couldn't make happen, because she was able to focus everyone's attention on the needs of the patient rather than all of the other stuff that goes along with running a university and a hospital.
It's amazing to me how visionary Wendy was with putting together these type of programs, because a lot of patients don't have anything near what the Les Turner Foundation offers with support group or with doctor visits. A lot of patients go to their clinics and they have to schedule several different doctor's appointments, and then they really don't have support groups. They have more like lecture halls. There's no human interaction.
That interaction extends to another program Wendy championed, the Home and Community Services Team, where patient and family advocates go into people's homes to help guide them through the various stages of the disease. Services include everything from equipment loans to respite grants, but it's the personal touch that truly resonates. And that's something Wendy has provided from the very start.
I think it's very rare to find people who get the struggle. And Wendy took time to come out to our home. She sat with us in our living room and answered all of our questions. How many executive directors of large organizations would do that?
Constancy, I guess that's the word, because she's been the executive director for 30-some years. And if you're going to provide service for all these people, you have to have continuity of care.
It's part of what bonds patients and families to the foundation and makes them want to play a part in its success. And it's been happening for years, starting with a patient named Monty Briner, who came to Wendy with an idea.
One of our nurses said to Monty, you know, I run for all of these causes, but there's nothing out there for ALS. And I'd really like to do that. And so Monty brought Wendy in to help. And that was the beginning of Miles for Monty, which Wendy, of course, was part of. Didn't matter when we had meetings, during the week, at night, on the weekends, she was there all the way. The run itself was very important to our family because it gave us something to focus on. It gave Monty a reason to keep going, and honestly, we couldn't have done it without Wendy and the support of the foundation.
Since then, there have been hundreds of family fundraisers which have relied on that support. At the same time, Wendy has been coordinating the foundation's own fundraisers, which have grown in number over the years, including a replacement for their signature event, the Mammoth Music Mart, which ended its run in 2002.
I'm sure that they all put their heads together, but Wendy's she's the one stirring the pot. So they came up with the walk, and it has just grown. Now we're down at Soldier Field, and we shattered the $1 million mark this year, which is awesome.
The walk is probably the single most energizing thing that we have, because you're surrounded by all these people and you feel like you're strengthened for the fight ahead. And I know that that was Wendy's vision.
A lot of our events are family oriented, which is a key thing because the families are so affected by this.
I think about my own experience of meeting ALS patients, forming these bonds with families who know what we're going through. And I can't quite imagine how Wendy, for 30+ years, has gotten that close with families and then had the experience of loss again and again. And yet, she manages somehow to take the best of those relationships and use that to fuel her going forward.
For decades, Wendy chose to be friends with people she knew would be gone too soon. She chose to get close to families who would be devastated by grief. How many of us would dare walk this path? How long would any of us last before growing cold and cynical? Wendy walked this path with grace, with a smile, with love.
You could say that Wendy is the heart of the organization. And I mean that in the traditional sense of showing compassion and caring and generosity of spirit. But in your body, your heart is just there every day doing its job. And that also describes Wendy for me. She's there as a heartbeat of the organization, day in and day out.
It all comes back to wearing a lot of hats, and boy, she has worn a lot of hats.
She's not afraid to get her hands wet, her feet dirty. She's up at the crack of dawn when there's a run. She's the last person to leave a dinner event. You know, it's just something she loves.
And it's a cause she's worked tirelessly to promote and learn more about, reaching out to professionals around the world in an annual forum designed to share information about the disease.
Remember, Wendy's one of the founding members of the International ALS and MND program. She's been honored by them. She's been president of their organization 2 different times. That comes because you're doing the job. You're doing it right. And Wendy does it right.
I've been able to learn a lot from her, especially the interactions she has with the International Symposium, to see how those interactions make a difference in those other countries.
Wendy has changed the landscape of care for thousands of patients across the globe.
She is kind of the maestro. She makes it all happen. She sits there in her ways, which are so stylish and classy. She waves her arms around and she keeps the clinic in beat. She keeps Northwestern in beat. She keeps her board of directors and she keeps the president in beat.
Look what she has done. Look where we're going. We've had the biggest walk ever, the Ice Bucket Challenge, naming the center. It's just a great year, and we're only going to keep growing.
You have an entire generation of ALS care providers who think differently about how to approach ALS care, and that's not going away.
Wendy has laid the foundation for the future. The staff, the board, the programs that are in place today are only going to lead to greater and greater things for the Les Turner ALS Foundation.
When you think about Wendy's involvement and the fact that Les Turner was the inspiration to start this foundation because he suffered from this illness, and Harvey and his friends carried it forward to form the foundation. But Wendy became involved and has stayed committed for all these years because she's lived through the families, she's lived through the patients, she's seen what they've gone through, and she relates to that. And she doesn't want anyone else to have to go through that.
You can't replace them, but you can have the memories. And I think that's what we have, is the memories, and to take their strength, because the people who get this disease are so strong that they really push you to keep going. You know, if they can fight, we can fight.
And tonight we honor Wendy for her unending commitment to that fight and for showing us what Hope Through Caring is all about.